Those who helped overthrow Robespierre were known as the Thermidorians. Now, as soon as Robespierre was executed, the convention set about ending the terror and stopping it from being possible again. The Thermidorians wanted a free market and wanted to end price controls. The people didn't want this, for when price controls were abolished, inflation occurred. And the people were angry, the people were hungry, and France was economically weak. The people rose up twice in Germinal and Prairial. These were 2 months and 2 uprisings. First of all, Germinal. Germinal wasn't really an uprising, it was more of a demonstration. And Germinal was when 10,000 people walked on the convention demanding bread and various other things. And they thought they would get the support of the Montagnards, but the Montagnards didn't support them. And then the National Guard got involved, and because they were unarmed, they couldn't do anything. So the people didn't resist, and they just left. So it wasn't really an uprising. It was a pretty low-key demonstration. So Prairial was a different story. Prairial was more serious because people were armed and a few National Guard units were involved. In Prairial, people marched on the convention once again, demanding for bread. This time, the convention answered them, and they agreed to take a petition. They also declared a food commission. 2 days later, the army got involved because things were getting too bad. So once the army got involved, sans-culottes were demoralized, and once the army got involved, the sans-culottes were no more. And then a new constitution was signed based on the principles of the first the revolution. So the people wanted to keep those main principles, equality and fairness, but they didn't want any of the bad things influenced by Robespierre and his people. So the legislator and the executive were separated. This meant that it would be pretty hard for a dictatorship to occur. So the people, they didn't want dictatorship again, so they made it super hard. The legislature was split into 2, the Council of 500 and the Council of Agents. The executive was a directory of 5 directors. Now, the directors could only be in office for 5 years, and the directors didn't really have a lot of power. They couldn't declare war, they couldn't make laws, they couldn't veto laws. Now, that meant a lot because in the terror, Robespierre could do anything. Now, people didn't want that to happen again, so they set rigid rules and boundaries for the new government to obey. The people don't like the convention anymore. They want a king back. They want a monarchy. They want a monarchy with limited power. That will threaten us, but I guess we have to for support.
I agree.
So let's launch these auditions. Auditioning number 1, auditioning to be the king. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Louis XVIII. I want to bring back the constitution, the Asian constitution, that is, and I want the stolen property of the church to be restored, and I want the past to become the present.
What? Stop. You're not really what we're looking for at this moment of time. France doesn't really need you. We don't like you. Can you please? We don't need you. So be gone.
You cannot dismiss me. I am Louis XVIII, bastard.
They are 25,000 strong, and they have more men
gun breathing?
They have one cannon.
So we use pellets instead of cannons. When we attack from the flanks, we shall be victorious.
We've got a pretty good plan. Napoleon Bonaparte. This guy was 26 when he became general. This guy entered the military at 15 and he became an artillery officer at 16. Bloody hell. This guy, yeah, he was my age when he became an artillery officer, yeah, and he became a general like 10 years later. He is like the most popular person in France at the time, at 1795. This guy worked his way to the top. He had no field experience. I'm telling you, this guy, Napoleon Bonaparte, he knew what he had to do. He knew the weaknesses of the political system, and he saw firsthand what was going on with the people, what they didn't like. He saw the weaknesses of the people as well, and tactics how to get around them, tactics how to win war. He knew everything, and when he was asked to join the coup to overthrow the Directory, he agreed willingly. Napoleon Bonaparte.
The main target for the French after that was to defeat the Austrians. The command of taking over Italy was given to General Napoleon Bonaparte. He would play a secondary role as he had no field experience and he had 20,000 unpaid, undisciplined workers. But within a month, he took over the north of Italy. Within the same month, he defeated the Austrians in Lodi. That's when he entered Milan. He also took over Milan, but he had ill manners. He did not follow the orders of the Directory. The Directory wanted Lombardy as a bargaining counter to negotiate with Austria about Rhineland. Instead, Napoleon joined Lombardy to Modena and instead formed the Caesarean Republic. The Austrians then recognized Belgium as a French state. As compensation, Napoleon gave Austria, Venice, and a part of another country. The Battle of Flores was the first success for the French. That summer they also occupied Belgium. In the following winter, they invaded the United Provinces. After that, the Russians intervened in Poland. Prussia thought if they make peace with France, they can take back Poland, but they made a minimal difference in the war. The French then occupied Rhineland in order to cross into Spain. In the Treaty of Bastille, the French agreed with Prussia that they would take back the left side of Rhineland. This proved a major battleground for the French against their enemies.
In 1978, there was concerns whether the French army would be able to defend its borders, so conscription was reintroduced, just like the one in 1973.
230,000 people were drafted, but only 74,000 actually ended up in the army. So Jourdan introduced the levée des masses, which basically consisted of all men between 20 and 25 had to immediately go into the army. This was quite a drastic measure for Jourdan to make because young men after their services in the military created anti-military groups and rebellions, and this will pose a very great problem for Jourdan in the future.